The golden morning light spread across the valley of Aurelian, where the tall spires of Crystal Wind Castle shimmered like jewels beneath the rising sun. Inside its grand halls lived Princess Leora, a young girl with kind eyes and an unquenchable curiosity about the world beyond her walls. While others found comfort in luxury, Leora often felt trapped by it. Her heart longed for the scent of wildflowers, the sound of distant rivers, and the mysteries that lay hidden in the forbidden forest beyond the kingdom's edge. The villagers whispered that ancient things lived there, things that should not be awakened. One breezy afternoon, as the royal garden's petals swayed in rhythm with the wind, Leora overheard two stable boys whispering about strange tremors near the forest. "The ground moves at night," one said. "And sometimes, it roars." The thought thrilled Leora more than it frightened her. That night, unable to resist her curiosity, she packed a small satchel, a silver lantern, bread, a charm her mother once gave her, and slipped past the guards. Her silk slippers were replaced by sturdy boots, and her crown was left behind on her pillow. The deeper she wandered, the stranger the forest became. The moonlight barely touched the ground beneath the thick canopy, and the air was thick with the scent of damp moss and something faintly sweet, like honey and ash. Crickets sang in uneven tones, and the trees themselves seemed to whisper secrets through their leaves. Then she heard it, a low rumble that made the earth shudder beneath her feet. Not thunder, something alive. It echoed again, deep and mournful, like a creature breathing in its sleep. Leora followed the sound to a valley hidden behind a curtain of vines. In the center lay a vast, overgrown clearing, and there, half buried beneath moss and wildflowers, was the unmistakable outline of a giant creature. Its scales were greenish gold, dulled by time. Vines wrapped around its tail and across its massive, folded wings. It looked almost like a mountain, yet the faint rise and fall of its chest told her it was still breathing. A dinosaur, she realized, but not like any in the old books. This one had horns carved like crystal and eyes sealed shut beneath layers of stone-like dust. For a moment, fear rooted her to the spot, but then, she stepped closer. The air around it shimmered faintly, and her mother's charm began to glow in her hand. The creature's breathing grew slower, deeper, as though it sensed her presence. "Who are you?" Leora whispered, not expecting an answer. Yet the ground trembled softly, and a distant, weary voice filled her thoughts. "Who wakes the guardian of the echoes?" Leora froze, her heart racing. The dinosaur wasn't just sleeping, it was waiting. Leora stumbled backward as the voice echoed inside her mind, soft yet ancient, carrying the weight of centuries. The forest fell silent, even the crickets pausing as though in reverence. The dinosaur's eyelids, if stone they truly were, began to crack, flakes of moss falling like dusted jewels. Beneath them gleamed eyes the color of molten amber, vast and slow blinking, filled with knowing sadness. Leora trembled, torn between awe and terror, but her curiosity anchored her in place. "I didn't mean to wake you," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I just wanted to know what you were." The enormous creature shifted slightly, the earth rumbling as roots and vines loosened their hold. The ground shimmered with golden light as old runes burned faintly on its scales, symbols of protection, of slumber, of forgotten power. "Long ago," the voice murmured again inside her head, "I guarded this realm from the fire beneath. But the world forgot me, and I slept so that peace could live." Leora swallowed hard, her heart racing. "Then why does the ground tremble again?" she asked. The creature's eyes dimmed. "Because peace is ending." As the dinosaur, a guardian, she realized, began to rise, the trees bent from the force of his movement. His wings unfolded like ancient banners, torn but magnificent, catching shards of moonlight. The air filled with a sound that wasn't quite a growl nor a sigh, something between sorrow and strength. Leora felt the vibration in her chest, as though her very heartbeat was answering his. And in that instant, she saw flashes, her mother's face, the same glowing charm, and a prophecy whispered in an old nursery rhyme about a sleeping giant that would awaken when the kingdom's heart was in danger. The guardian lowered his head to her level, his great eyes reflecting her small, determined figure. "What is your name, child of the crown?" he asked, his thoughts forming words she could almost hear aloud. "Leora," she said softly. "Daughter of Queen Seraphine." The name made the creature's eyes widen, a deep hum vibrating through his chest. Seraphine, the last to bind the seal. He studied her a moment longer before rumbling, "Your coming was no accident, Princess of Light. You carry what was once mine, the Heartstone." Her gaze fell to the glowing charm in her palm, its light pulsing stronger than before. Confusion and wonder swirled inside her. The charm her mother gave her, the one she'd worn all her life, wasn't just a trinket of love. It was something older, something powerful enough to awaken legends. "Why me?" she asked, almost pleading. The Guardian's gaze softened. "Because destiny runs in the blood of those who dream beyond walls." Then, with a low growl, he turned his massive head toward the horizon where dark clouds were gathering. "The fire returns. If you wish to save your people, princess, you must walk with me." The night wind howled through the forest, carrying the promise of danger, and the beginning of an impossible journey. By dawn, the mist had thickened over the forest, rolling like pale silver waves through the trees. Princess Leora followed the great dinosaur, whom she now knew as Oralthar, the guardian of echoes, as his colossal feet left glowing prints that shimmered for moments before fading into the soil. Each step seemed to awaken the land around them. Ancient flowers bloomed in his wake, trees straightened their trunks, and the air felt alive with power. Despite the weight of what she had learned, Leora couldn't help but feel a quiet awe. "Where are we going?" she asked as her boots brushed against dew-heavy grass. "To the edge of the veil," Oralthar replied. "Where your mother sealed the fire." The path soon turned rugged, leading them through twisting ravines and across a crumbling stone bridge that swayed over a river of fog. Strange creatures stirred beneath the mist, shadows shaped like wings, whispering in forgotten tongues. Oralthar's golden eyes burned brighter as he muttered low words of warning, his voice like thunder made soft. Leora clung to the bridge's rail, her hair whipping in the wind. When they reached the other side, she turned to look back, but the forest behind them had vanished entirely, swallowed by the veil of mist. "No one without courage ever crosses," Oralthar said gravely. "You have begun the path of the bound." By midday, they arrived at an ancient field, the Hollow of Crowns, where broken statues half buried in moss marked what had once been a battlefield. Leora knelt beside one of the ruins and brushed away the dirt, revealing the face of a woman with eyes like her own. "My mother," she breathed. The statue's expression was serene but determined. Oralthar bowed his head. "Seraphine sealed the flames here, using her heartstone, your heartstone. She divided its power, leaving a fragment with me to ensure the fire would never rise again." Leora's gaze flicked toward the distant mountains where the sky flickered faintly red. "But something broke the seal," she murmured. As they moved onward, the light dimmed, and a cold wind swept through the valley. Whispers began to circle them, voices that weren't wind at all. The air shimmered, and figures appeared, translucent and pale, armored in spectral light. The ghost knights of the flame. They blocked the path ahead, their swords drawn, eyes glowing like embers. Oralthar roared, shaking the ground. "Begone! The pact still holds." But the spirits didn't retreat. The largest among them stepped forward, pointing a burning blade toward Leora. "The heir has returned," the ghost intoned. "The seal weakens because of her." Leora's heart pounded. "I'm not your enemy," she said, trembling. "I came to protect what my mother built." The ghost hesitated, and for a moment, the fire in his eyes flickered. Then, he lowered his sword. "Then prove it," he said. "Find the flame's core before the shadows do." The spirits faded, leaving behind a trail of glowing ashes that formed a faint path leading east. Oralthar turned to Leora, his expression unreadable. "The core lies beyond the Valley of Mirrors," he said quietly. "Few who enter it return the same." Leora looked at the distant red glow over the mountains and squared her shoulders. Then that's where we'll go. Her voice no longer shook. The guardian's eyes glimmered with pride. The journey had begun in curiosity, but now, it carried destiny. The following nights passed in restless wonder. Princess Elara could think of nothing but the voice that had called to her from the moonlight. She tried to explain it to her father, the king, but he only smiled sadly and told her she must be dreaming too much. Still, Elara knew what she'd seen, and what she'd heard. The words, "Follow the music that only dreams can hear," repeated in her mind until they became part of her heartbeat. On the third night, as the castle slept, Elara decided to search for the meaning of the riddle. She walked barefoot through the quiet halls, carrying a small lantern. The light flickered across the portraits of long-past queens and kings, their painted eyes watching her pass. When she reached the grand staircase, she paused. A soft sound drifted through the air, faint but real. It wasn't a voice, nor a flute, but something gentler, a humming, like a lullaby half-remembered from childhood. Elara followed it down the winding halls and through the courtyard where dew glistened like tiny diamonds. The sound grew stronger as she approached the old wing of the castle, the one that had been locked for years since her mother's illness. The door stood slightly open, and though the air was cool and heavy with dust, the melody shimmered through it like sunlight through water. She hesitated only for a moment before stepping inside. Moonlight poured through a broken window, falling on a grand piano covered with cobwebs. The keys gleamed faintly as if touched by invisible hands. The melody came from there, soft, slow, aching with beauty. Elara's breath caught. "Mother's song," she whispered. She remembered sitting beside her mother as a little girl, watching her play that very tune when the world still felt warm. Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled faintly. "So this is the music only dreams can hear," she said softly. When she reached out to touch the piano, the air shimmered, and the starlight figure appeared again, glowing brighter than before. "You remember," the whispering girl said, smiling. "The heart song never truly fades. It only waits for you to listen again." Elara pressed a hand over her chest. For the first time in what felt like forever, warmth spread through her, a mix of sadness and peace. The music continued, and though no one sat at the piano, it felt as if her mother's love still filled the room, gently teaching her how to feel joy again. The climb to the mountain took days. Each night, the sky burned a little brighter, and each morning, the air grew heavier with the scent of smoke and ash. The Mount of Fire's heart, once dormant for centuries, now pulsed with life, molten veins glowing through cracks in its black surface. Oralthar carried Leora most of the way, his breath labored, his scales dimmed but still shining faintly through the soot. "Are you sure this is the only way?" she asked one evening as they rested on a ledge overlooking the molten rivers below. The guardian nodded slowly. "The fire was never meant to die," he murmured. "Only to sleep, as I once did. Your mother bound it, but she left a choice for the one who followed, to seal it again, or to awaken it in light." Leora turned the charm over in her palm. Its glow had softened, no longer fierce, but steady, like the warmth of home. The closer they drew to the summit, the more she understood. The Heartstone wasn't just magic. It was memory, her mother's will, Orelthar's duty, and her own courage intertwined. When they reached the crater's edge, a wind unlike any other swept past them, hot yet strangely pure. Inside the mountain's heart blazed a storm of fire, swirling like a sun trapped in stone. It wasn't chaotic, it was alive. And in its glow, she saw visions, the kingdom as it had been long ago, her mother standing beside Orelthar, the same charm held high as she whispered her final vow, but something else stirred beneath the fire. Shadows, vast and coiling, began to rise, faces forming within the flames, their eyes empty and cruel. The flames' remnants, born from the world's forgotten greed and anger. They shrieked when they saw Leora, reaching upward with burning claws. "You cannot silence us again," they cried. The ground cracked beneath her feet, heat rippling like waves. Orelthar reared back, spreading his wings wide, roaring in defiance. "Stay behind me," he thundered. But Leora shook her head. "No. This is my kingdom too." Her voice was small, but it carried through the storm like a bell. She stepped forward, raising the Heartstone, its glow reflecting in every fiery eye. The shadows struck, but before they could reach her, Orelthar leapt between them, his body shielding her from the firestorm. His roar shook the mountain, and his wings caught flame, turning gold and red as if made of light itself. "Now, Leora," he cried. Tears blurred her vision as she held the Heartstone high. "By the bond of blood and dream, I call the light that binds and heals." The charm burst apart in her hands, dissolving into thousands of radiant sparks that circled her and the Guardian. The fire twisted, screamed, and then stilled. Slowly, the storm subsided, the shadows fading into mist. Where once was chaos, now there was calm, the mountain glowing softly like the heart of a sleeping ember. When the smoke cleared, Orelthar knelt beside her, his body cracked but shining, his eyes gentle. "You have done what even I could not," he said, his voice fading into a whisper. "You gave the flame balance." Leora placed her hand on his snout, her tears falling onto his scales. "Rest now, Guardian," she whispered. "You'll never be forgotten again." The golden light spread through his form, and slowly, he turned to stone, not cold or lifeless, but peaceful, his wings curved around the mountain's edge like a crown. The wind fell silent. Leora stood alone, her cloak billowing, gazing into the dawn that broke over the horizon. The kingdom, far below, shimmered under a new sunrise. Years later, travelers who passed through the mountain's valley spoke of a stone guardian who glowed at night when storms drew near, and of a queen who ruled with both courage and kindness, her heart full of fire and grace. In the royal garden of Crystal Wind Castle, beneath the oldest tree, there rested a single charm, once broken, now whole again, glowing faintly with warmth. Some said, if you listened closely, you could still hear a faint rumble beneath the earth, like the heartbeat of a sleeping friend. And so, the tale of the princess and the dinosaur lived on, not just in story, but in the spirit of every dreamer who believed in the light beyond fear.